that's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune when I'm back on top in June. I said that's life.
So Gary, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. We just got done having Chinese food, and my fortune said that my new adventure was going to take off. And I was like, ooh, I can't wait to tell Matt that.
I feel like that could be a new project, though.
Yeah.
And not necessarily the pod.
Well, we're here, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
We've made it through the unintentional podcast, and here we go. Our first intentional podcast.
So what are you working on this week?
Anything
cool?
Well, I mean, more Tundra stuff. It seems like we're just constantly doing Tundra stuff, and we had a little bit of a fail. But I like to talk about failures because that's how we learn.
Of course.
I'm going to talk about a failure, I guess. So for those of you that know, we do a ton of Tundra stuff, and we've developed some pretty amazing systems that are all high-end Moscone Class AB amplifier based, and I feel that we turn out a really great sounding truck for a really reasonable price point because we've spent all the time in development. And we know that we need to have something at a lower price point. And so we did some experimenting, and I borrowed a truck and got everything all hooked up. And it's like that moment of truth when you turn it on and you're just like, you get the volume knob almost all the way up to the top, and you're just like, yeah, we got to start over. So so we started over, and we put some new gear that we were testing in, and it is night and day better. It bumps the price of the system up a few $100, but worth every penny. So I don't want to talk about the product too much yet until we make sure it's bulletproof and
get all figured out.
Good. Yeah, but it's definitely something kind of exciting. And then,
dude, I always get the same anxiety when I build something. And then, you do all the cosmetic stuff, and then you get it together and you're just like, God damn, I hope this sounds good. Because it looks cool. It better sound good.
Oh, so check this out. So I had a potential customer bring a car in. It's going to be really weird if potential customers are listening to this, and we talk about him after the fact, and they can, he was talking about me.
Yeah.
So
that was my car.
There you go. I had a customer come in today, and I listened to his vehicle, and it was kind of one of those, I think we've had this conversation many times, but if I look in the trunk and I see, or somebody's like, yeah, I have 315s, you expect it to rip your head off and be loud. The same type of thing when somebody says like, hey, I have this amazing set of speakers in my car, and you predetermine in your head, you've said this before, you have an image in your mind of what it's going to sound like.
Exactly.
And I sat in this car and I was like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. And it was kind of one of those instant like, hey, the delays aren't right. Hey, there's definitely a lot of EQ work that can be done. And there were some pretty specific complaints about the system, none of which were like, hey, I don't have a great center image.
Yeah.
Hey, it sounds really muddy.
So he had complaints. It wasn't your complaints; it was his complaints.
No, he was coming to me to see what we could do to make it better, and it definitely didn't meet my predetermined expectations of what I expected. Sometimes you hear that stuff, or somebody says, "Hey, this is what I have in my car," and you know exactly what it's going to sound like, and it's just like, "Hey, you just need a tune."
Yeah, and I'll say this too: like if you're a client and you think for 1 second that it might not sound great, it probably sounds horrible, like really bad. You know what I mean? Just because the expectations of most clients, they're really going to compare it to whatever they've heard in the past, and whatever they've heard in the past still probably isn't anywhere close to spectacular. So if they think it's bad, it's probably really bad. So if you're a client and you're listening and you've had work done and you're an enthusiast, and you think your car might sound a little bit bad, it sounds really bad. I promise you.
So that was the second one this week. That was one of those types of install things. And customer comes in, another insane amount of equipment in a car, all high end stuff. And I told him, like, bring it down, let me listen to it. I'll tell you if I think a tune. The call was specifically like, are you familiar with the Moscone processor? Can you tune it? And they're like, yes, of course. Obviously, that's our thing right there. That's our wheelhouse.
Hmm.
And why don't you bring it down? Let me listen to it and make sure that I think I can get it to sound better or significantly better, and I'll have a better idea of how long we'll need to dial it in depending on where it's at and where you want to go. And it shows up, and I literally put on one track, listen for 4 seconds, and turn the volume down. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and he's like, "That fast, huh?" And I'm like,
uh,
"Yep." And it was a track that I know very well, and I know that
hmm.
there's a nice little snap on the right-hand side, and it was on the left-hand side, and I
Oh,
was like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, "Really, this much money in equipment and your channels are not even hooked up correctly. This is bad." So,
yeah. It's not good.
uh, it happens more than you'd think,
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, more than I'd think. I mean, ugh.
yeah. Again, I think a lot of people just don't even check that kind of stuff. They literally put the equipment in and call it a day. A lot of dude, I've had so many cars that have had Moscone processors come in and the EQ hasn't even been adjusted. Period.
Yeah.
Like it's just a line out converter.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those. We've definitely seen our share of EQs that have had, like, one band pushed. I definitely see plenty that have never had a Q adjustment done on any single filter. I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of fun stuff, so
yeah. I mean this week's been fun. I mean, I started my surprisingly first Model 3 build.
I I was gonna say, I think I saw Model 3
Yeah,
pictures.
that's been fun because there's still so many unknowns and things you have to work around. Like the biggest thing on the Model 3 is finding a proper turn on with the MCU. Bing just did his in California at his shop, Simplicity and Sound. Great crew over there. But I was asking him where he grabbed it, and he had it at a spot in which was tapped to like the passenger kick panel, and it was this wire in which you had to be sitting in the driver's seat. So weight on the seat, car ready to drive, would then give power. So it's great up until you are charging the car. Because when you're charging the car, it's not ready to drive. Therefore, you don't have any audio, which I think a lot of people are going to have audio when their car's charging. So looking online, and I've done a lot of radar in the past on the 3, but Tesla seems to like change how certain circuits are working, right? Because before the 12-volt socket in the console would be a turn on with the MCU. You open the door, it turns on, and then they changed that in a firmware update to be constant power. I don't know why, but they like mess with their circuits.
So
So
have you had cars where you had it wired to that circuit and then you had to bring them back in and change them?
no. So what I've done in the past on all Tesla is I use like either a DC offset or signal sense. And the reason for that is primarily when you have Sentry mode and it uses the audio system when the car is off, like nobody's in the car, and it'll use the speakers as the alarm system. So you're pretty much thrown into signal sense or DC offset in order to get the equipment to turn on when the car's not physically on. I've had no problems with that. Obviously, the equipment turns off fine. But in the 3, it's a little different because the DC to DC converter works in a different way. It has more of a smart charging system. So it knows the load of the battery, it knows the amperage that is being put out by the car. So the car fully falls asleep, which is different, right? So in the Model S and the Model X, you basically have a typical DC to DC converter. The car will output massive amounts of power, and the 12-volt system will monitor the amperage in order to let the DC to DC converter know when to put power to and cycle the 12-volt battery. In the Model 3, like when you're out of the car and you leave, the car like falls asleep and the car gets completely drained, which is weird.
When you say completely drained.
So it completely removes power to the 12-volt side. It'll
On the DC
drain.
to DC charging side. It's
Right, and
basically
the
flipping a
12
switch
volt,
and disconnecting.
yeah, and the 12-volt side will get completely drained. The big problem with the Model 3 is when that DC to DC converter hooks back up and it charges that battery, well, the amplifiers and all the capacitors are drained at that point. So it's like you're, hooking that fuse up and getting that spark, right? And that's the amperage then running, rushing through. And the car is seeing this massive amperage spike due to the amplifiers getting power in its split second. And then it's telling the car, hey, we have a problem here. Basically, the big fix is you're using like a battery isolator and using a 100-watt resistor in order to slowly not let that amperage spike through that connection. So it gives
Gotcha.
it enough time to not have that massive amperage spike. Therefore, the car is going to think everything's working properly. Very
I'm gonna
confusing stuff. So basically how the system functions is the DC to DC converter will charge the car like normal, but once the car is off and you leave the car is locked, the car will completely drain. The 12-volt side will lose basically all of its power. So when you get back into the car, if you have accessories in there, if you have amplifiers, you're immediately getting an amperage spike if you just were to hook it up to the 12-volt side of the car.
And is
Um,
that because there's a relay or a solenoid disconnecting the battery, or you're saying the actual 12-volt battery drains its voltage out?
well, yeah. So like in the S and the X, the traction battery will still charge the 12-volt side even when the car is asleep almost, right?
Right.
Whereas I think the Model 3, to make it maximize the battery, they completely shut it off, right?
Gotcha.
So I think because of the cost saving measures to create the 3, they made the car fall asleep. So there is no like vampire drain or this 12-volt drain while the car's just chilling. So
You
I
hear me
think
chew you
yeah,
hear me chewing on my cherry? Sorry.
yeah.
That
Well,
was a bad move.
so your cherry, is it Luxardo or is it maraschino cherry?
No, it's the fancy kind, and my wife even peeled the orange. Um,
That's nice. So
yeah,
obviously we're the old fashioned pod. We're both drinking old fashions. I can see yours right now. What is your bourbon of choice or whiskey of choice tonight?
I believe this is larceny. What about you?
I just went with the old makers.
Yeah, solid choice.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
we're
mean
gonna have to.
it's the non sexy choice.
Well,
Um it's it's just old faithful there.
mhm. What about mixer? What mixer are you using these days?
I make my own mix. So I
Oh,
basically am going a couple dashes of simple syrup. I'll take some Anagostia bitters and some chocolate bitters.
interesting.
And then I'll take my little toothpick with my 2 Luxardo cherries, and then I'll drizzle a dash of the Luxardo juice in the
Wow,
old fashioned. I
wow.
think that's kind of where I've been at.
That's pretty solid. I feel like we may have to uh, constantly push to try new variations of the old fashioned here
Yeah,
on a
and
weekly basis.
yeah, and I was trying to go with something different today, but I don't know, nothing just really screamed to me. I've done a lot of like done a lot of Jeffersons, done a lot of obviously Woodford, 1764,
All
Basil
solid
Haydens.
choices. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
That was probably you that got me on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
cool.
yeah, I mean it's been a long week. The Model 3, it's surprisingly gone along well. And when I was talking about the turn on wire, what I had to end up doing is I had to find the input side that triggers the light in the center console. So there's a light in the center console lid. Okay. So obviously they're never going to change the way that the center console light works. It's never going to work with the car off. So in this case, obviously you open the lid and then the light turns on. So obviously there's an input side of that. So I used a relay to trigger the input side of that in order to turn on the in our case, the battery isolator, which is, the relay separating our equipment from the car side, which then has that 100-watt resistor in line with it.
Gotcha.
So,
One of the things that I would really like us to continue to talk about on this podcast is system design. So while we're here and we're talking about the Model 3, you want to run through real quick what you're putting in there?
Yeah, so we're using Carbon Illusion C8 in the front doors, 8-inch woofer. Whether you do a Utopia M8, Carbon Illusion 8, it's always a great fit for that factory location. And then we originally designed to do the C3CX in the factory location up on the upper part of the dashboard. And basically, at that point, it would have been bouncing off of the glass, which the client then the other day wanted to do an Alcantara headliner, change everything to Alcantara. So upon doing that, he's like, hey, we might as well just do pillars now. So we'll be doing the C3CX and the pillars, which again, for us at the shop, we are going to purchase a Model 3 for a shop car just because the layout of the dashboard, it's completely flat, it's open, the pillars are massive. You could probably do 6s in the pillars and it wouldn't even look weird. But yeah, I mean, it's a great car when it comes to layout. Obviously, depending on where the speakers are, you're going to have more reflections based on, the entire glass roof. And I mean, there's a lot of glass in most Tesla, but
Right.
at the end of the day, I mean, it's a pretty even car. The interior is pretty uniform. And then the amplifiers, I never really use these amps, but we're using the D-Class Focal black amps. I think they're the maybe FPX, FDP.
Yeah, I never remember the model number.
Yeah. So this car, it's more of a show car. So he wanted to do a more aesthetic approach. So the sound quality really wasn't at the top of his expectations. It was more of just a, complete show car. I mean, this thing's bagged. You could barely fit a dollar bill between the body and the ground, which is pretty cool because you really don't see bag cars like that anymore. At least we don't on the East Coast. Probably you see them all the time in California.
A little more common out here.
Yeah.
My wife was behind I don't know what kind of car it was. Some sort of like, oh, I know now, I remember what it was. She was in the Dunkin' drive-through getting me donuts and coffee on Friday. More for herself probably, but she grabbed me some too. So the car in front of her was like a 90s Nissan Maxima with some wheels that stuck out about 3 inches on each side, spoke wheels, and the car was just hammered on the ground. And she said, I'm not sure what it meant, but it said "fuck your bags" on the back on a bumper sticker. I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's pretty
so
good.
I'm sure we'll bleep that out. But so we went around the house for a couple of days saying "F your bags, F your bags."
That's pretty good.
So I saw one on a bug once, and the sticker said, "Bags are for groceries." But we see a lot of bagged cars out here, so we're used to it.
There you go.
And it's a thing of pride for the guys out here that have really slam cars and no bags, and they just drag them over speed bumps and in
Yeah.
driveways and tear them up, and
Yeah.
they're
So that's
proud
a
of it.
real thing, huh?
It really is.
I've never seen that.
I know. Well, next time you're out here,
East Coast people are so different.
well, I mean, you have to get over snow and salt, and
Yeah. Humidity.
right.
So
So,
yeah.
you said sound quality wasn't at the top of the priority list for that guy.
Yeah,
But
like I said, it's going to be more of an aesthetic approach because again, this car really is like a show car. It's still going to like hot import nights. I didn't even know hot import nights still happened, but apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a cool looking install. It's still going to sound great. We're going to do everything we can to make it sound good. And when I saw Bing do he put his sub in the passenger footwell, which obviously always a great location. The seats go back pretty far. So, I mean, it's not really intrusive, but it does get in the way of like the cabin filter replacement and things like that. The reason he did it is because the trunk's like completely sealed. So there is no like vent from, say, anything in the deck. It's completely sealed. So
Wow.
there is a kind of like a speaker grill on the rear deck. So what I'm going to end up doing is just pull the rear deck, cut in a very, very clean hole, make a pass through so we can get a lot of air moving from the trunk into the inside of the car.
And do you know what the woofer box is going to be yet?
Carbon Illusion C10XL.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing is like the amps, the space and where he wants to put the amps. I mean, there's going to be a lot of depth to play with. So, I mean, we should be able to do something that looks pretty cool.
Right on.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's been my week at the shop. And then finally extending the shop and doing an upholstery room, doing a sanding room, putting some wood floor down in the wood shop, which would look dope. I can't wait to see that when it's done. It's going to look so good.
Sounds cool. Sounds fancy.
Yeah, so it's been a busy week, and today, completely off topic though, my 4-year-old, we're sitting in our kitchen and I'm eating dinner, and all of a sudden I hear her say, "Damn it." She's 4, and I'd
Oh,
never heard her say this before. So she was like, "Damn it." And I was like, "Huh?" And I said, "Damn it." And I was like, "Why would you say that?" And she literally said this. She said, "I oopsie daisy spilled my water on my arm. So I said, damn it." And I
now,
was like,
have you
oh
said
my
that?
God.
Have you said that word in front of her, or do you think it was your wife
Well,
that she learned it from?
it was definitely me. But I mean, she's such an old 4. I don't even know if that's a prop or not.
Old 4.
She's such an old 4. And it was just funny the way she said, "I oopsie daisy spilled my water
Right.
on my arm." So I said, damn it.
It's logical. So I see how you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man, it's
fun.
fun. So
So I feel like we need to know more about you. We need to know your history. We need to know
yeah.
what got you into car audio. What was your first car audio experience? What was the first thing that made you go, I like this?
Well, I don't think it was really car audio related. Probably 12 years old, and I had a Yamaha Blaster 4-wheeler
Okay.
and became overly obsessed with modifying it. Talking about like FMF, 2-stroke pipes, Nerf bars, and I just love bolting stuff on, making it unique. And then I ended up getting a Honda 400EX, which then I started getting more obsessed with, more detailed. That's when I first started carbon fiber. I did like these carbon fiber light shrouds, and this is back when I'm trying to remember. It's been so long ago. I'm gonna botch it, but there was like these VHS tapes. I don't know if it was like Fiberglass Man or like how to fiberglass.
What year is this?
It was probably 2001, maybe 99, 98.
Wow.
Right at the turn of the century. There was these VHS tapes, and I purchased like 3 of them, and it was like how to fiberglass.
Right.
And that's kind of what got me started into the whole car thing, because obviously when you graduate from 4-wheelers, you get a car when you're 16. The way that my whole life went was there was a point in time, and I lived with my dad growing up, and he had said, "Listen, we can send you to like I guess a private high school, like a nice high school, or I can buy you your first car." And what
What
six yeah,
what
what
a,
yeah, what it's a borderline terrible parenting move, because there's no
it's pretty
kid.
baller though. It's pretty baller. Like,
Well, I mean, he knew the price difference in his head. He's probably doing the math, just like he's going to take the easy way out. He's going to pick a car. So my first car was a 1999 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX.
wow.
Yeah, and it was already, I don't want to say somewhat modified, but it was already kind of modified. So this girl owned it, and we got it at like a really good price. And that's kind of what started everything. So
So were you aware of car audio because of those videos, or where did the audio side blend in, or are we not there yet?
So we're definitely not there yet.
Okay.
Um, Getting this car, I just started doing kind of like the dumbest shit that I could do, like just, spray painting small pieces of the car white. It was a white car. So I'm like Krylon painting some of the
That's
interior parts
that's
white,
awesome.
because
Is
I
the
think that's like what you do when you start out. You really don't know much. So you're just like doing whatever you can do. But I
was the
remember,
GSX the turbo, or
yeah,
is that the
yeah,
not? Oh
yeah,
gosh,
all wheel drive turbo.
that's smart.
Yeah. So
16-year-old kid in a
yeah,
turbo.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah. And
awesome.
I don't even want to, I don't even
Brilliant
want to,
parenting.
yeah, I don't even want to get to the crazy nights with that car in high school. So, I remember like bolting on like Greddy intercooler on the front.
Nice.
So just doing some things that are fun and having trim the fiberglass away on the bumper to get the intercooler to fit. So again, that's kind of like where the tweakiness of this whole thing kind of started. But yeah, going through, I think as I started adapting to wanting to know more and more about what the modern fads were and styles were, I think Car Audio Mag came along, Performance Auto Sound came along, and then obviously looking in the magazines and seeing, the Alpine cars and all that kind of stuff, which then furthermore gave myself like a goal to, I guess, want to be a part of at some point. So I watched a lot of the videos. I would look at a lot of the articles. Steve Brown, he would do like how-to articles in those magazines. Jason Anderson of Installer Institute, he would do a lot of those little blurbs of how to. So going on, I built my clips. The whole inside was like basically fiberglass. Everything was painted. It was such a 2002 car.
Looked like a jacuzzi.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It looked like a jacuzzi, and I would show it at Hot Import Nights and all the different shows across the East Coast. Moved to Florida, I would show it at like Hot Import Nights Miami. I won like best import in Miami. I won.
Wait, was that with the Krylon, or did you graduate from the
No,
Krylon?
definitely graduated. There was a lot of
Okay,
carbon
just checking.
fiber. Yeah, everything was painted. It was like a blue pearl paint. There was one Lambo door, one suicide door, which was very different.
It's very unique.
Yeah, there was two Lambo doors at one point, but one of the doors broke and came down and crashed and pummeled the door sill, which of course was molded onto the car.
Oh
There's no
gosh.
lines. And yeah, so it came down, crashed, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to buy two Lambo doors because they come in a set. So I just did a suicide door. So obviously the driver door was a suicide door, the passenger door was a Lambo door, and then it had a super taillight conversion on the back.
There you go.
So it looked like a Toyota Supra from the back.
I
It's
I hope you have
such a,
pictures of this car.
I do, and I'll
Okay.
send them to you.
Whenever we promote this episode,
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
like the pictures of that car to be the promo that we blasted out with.
yeah, for sure. That's
Okay,
going to happen.
awesome. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah. But it was fun because I
Okay.
lived in Florida and I moved to Florida first and foremost to go to school at Universal Technical Institute. So I
Oh,
went to UTI just to kind of get a mechanical background because I always knew that I wanted to do the audio side of things, but I always feel like you can't be a master of your craft if you don't even know half your craft, right?
how long is UTI? Like what did you take? Is there like a standardized process and length, or is that months, years? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's about a year and a couple months. So it's not terribly long, but each class I would say is like maybe 6 weeks.
Okay.
So, you'll do like transmission for 6 weeks and you're literally going through everything, building manual transmissions, building automatic transmissions, and, AC. You're learning the whole how air conditioning works in a car,
So it's basically
fully in depth.
broken
Yeah,
out by system of the car, and
correct.
and when you're done with that 6 weeks, Like, I mean, if I put a transmission in front of you today, you could pull the whole thing apart and put fresh bearings and whatever in it? Or is it that toe in the water type of scenario?
Today, probably not. Probably no chance.
When you were fresh out of that course, could you?
Yeah,
Or is
for
it just
sure. For
enough to
sure.
get you the understanding of it, but not the expertise?
For sure. Yeah, I could definitely do it when we got out of the class. In fact, I had a Ford Lightning during the whole time that I went to UTI.
Nice.
So I basically did, like, I would time up like suspension with suspension on my Lightning because you could work on your own stuff as like
Oh,
projects.
nice. Nice.
So I would, if we're doing suspension, hey, I'm doing traction bars, I'm doing, drop shackles in the back, I'm doing all sorts of stuff. I would time the build of my Lightning throughout that whole class.
That's awesome.
And I mean, it was fun. It was definitely a learning experience. School started, I want to say at like 6 in the morning.
Woo.
It was like 6 a.m. to 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember
And how old were you at that time?
I was probably 20 or 19, 20.
Right. So you weren't out drinking every night then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't really know many people. Obviously, that was when we were living in Orlando. We could go to my wife now. She was my girlfriend at the time, but we went from high school and then moved to Florida together. So we had an apartment in Orlando, and dude, Orlando's nuts. Orlando's crazy. Looking back, it is not a place to raise a family. Sorry if there's anyone listening from Orlando, but
Do we need to keep
this is not an Orlando podcast, so I don't feel
do
bad saying that.
do we need to keep a list of people we have to apologize to at the end of each episode?
Probably.
Orlandorians? How do you say
Yeah.
that? Orlandoans.
Yeah.
Some
Orlando is tough. I mean, the whole Casey Anthony thing happened 2 miles away from us.
Oh gosh.
You remember that whole
Uh-huh.
story, right? Yeah. 2 miles away from us. I would drive by that spot all the time, and there's many other things. Like he'd put on the national news and it would be like ransoms and shit that you don't even hear on the national news. Or we'd put on the local news and it would be stuff you wouldn't hear on the national news. It was crazy.
That's
But
crazy.
yeah. So
Okay. So UTI and then
yeah,
what
UTI was
next?
great. While I was at UTI, I was working at Circuit City in the road shop, CC Road Shop,
Ooh. I don't know if
LFA
you know this.
Trail,
I don't know if you know this or
In
not.
Orlando.
I also am an ex Circuit City Road Shop employee. I don't know
Yeah.
if you knew that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any SILs while you were there?
Oh, I got a great one. I'm gonna make a note of that when we come back to it. I only had one, and it is a great story.
It's a doozy.
Oh, it's good.
So
And
just for all of you listening, an SAL is a self-insured loss.
which means something happened. Something happened.
Yeah,
I
not good.
I accept maybe 20% of the blame for this one, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay. So Circuit City Road Shop, it was definitely a dive into car audio. While we were there, like I said, we would do the whole hot import night stuff. We would show on all the local circuits, do the Daytona Beach Show, the Spring Break Nationals, all that kind of stuff, which the car always did pretty well. When we left Orlando, we moved back to Maryland, which is where we are originally from, my wife and I, and worked at a local, it was called 410 Motoring, and it was like a custom shop. And there I actually did more performance than I did custom. So I remember one of the jobs I did, I was a 93 Fox body Mustang. I did an engine swap to I want to say it was like a 305 carbureted engine, took out the fuel injected engine that was in there. We converted it to manual, like rebuilt the whole car from the ground up. And I did, like I said, very little audio. I did do some, but it was more performance based.
And I
That
feel like you jumped, right? Like, so we were UTI back and forth and Circuit City, and like what what drove you to Circuit City, and then like, I mean,
So
did you
Circuit City, I mean, I feel like it was so hard to get a job anywhere. Dude, I went to Best Buy, I went to like Barnes and Noble, I went everywhere. And I had my car, like the Eclipse at the time as well. So I had driven it, I think, to like the road shop. And then I asked, hey, are you guys hiring? So I think the car was enough to like get somebody
Sealed the
to
deal,
take a chance on me.
right?
So that's kind of, I guess, how my foot got in the door at the road shop.
And were you like, was that something that you wanted to do, or it was just you needed a job and that seemed like a
Oh,
job?
for sure. I mean, it definitely wanted to do, work on cars because I had a background, but I didn't have any clue on how to install like a 211 HV keyless entry system.
I thought you were gonna say a CD changer and a tape deck.
Nope, not that old.
Damn.
Yeah,
Am I dating myself again?
a little bit.
It happens.
Yeah. So, I mean,
So, wait a second. Are you saying you never installed a two-shaft radio?
of course I have.
Okay. I don't know. That might have been right after. I feel like they were faded out about.
I've still installed all that stuff, but I mean, it
Alright.
just wasn't like the main bread and butter. This is like when the Commander Sirius or XM radio was out, right? The Commander, was that the popular one, the
I
silver
don't
one,
know.
big brick looking thing?
I wasn't really doing retail when that stuff came about.
No, but I mean, it was fun, and like I said, we moved back to Maryland. I worked at this performance shop. This was kind of at the pitfall of the economy. This was around maybe '07, '08 when I think we had the recession. And then I ended up at Tweeter, which is a
I know a tweeter.
mid-Atlantic company. It was
We
founded in.
had some tweeters out here.
Did you?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I thought it was like an East Coast thing.
I think mostly, and then we got a couple stores out here.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking something else.
Yeah. I want to say it was founded in Massachusetts. So it's like an East Coast mid-Atlantic store. But it was like, you know what it reminded me a lot of 40-Year-Old Virgin, that store they work at.
Oh my gosh, what's the
We're
song?
just yeah,
Hear that one more time, Yamo gonna kill somebody.
everyone you feel like everyone's just like a burnout.
That's
And
what I felt at Circuit City.
oh man, it was crazy. But I mean, it was awesome. It was almost like a fraternity.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everyone was great friends. It's pretty cool too because like I'm a big football fan, and our tweeter was located in Owings Mills, Maryland, and that's where the Baltimore Ravens practice. So I would have a lot of Baltimore Raven clientele come in, which was pretty fun because, growing up, I would always be like a memorabilia hound and would go to their training camp and wait around for autographs and get like game use cleats and gloves and stuff like that and build a lot of rapport with the players. So it was cool to see it come full circle once they started coming in, and I was, working on a lot of their cars. So that was pretty fun. But I think Tweeter was where I was forced to grow the most as an installer, because there was points when I was the only installer there and there's no one to turn to. There's no tech support that, like people are depending on you to figure out the car and get it done. Like the dude's got to leave. You got to figure it out.
Right.
So you're forced to troubleshoot, which is what I tell all young kids nowadays who were in the position that I was in, or who are in the position that I was in. And I just tell them, like, troubleshoot everything first. Like if it's something that you think that I know the answer to in 2 seconds, then you can ask me. But if it's something that I have to go in the car and look at myself, then you need to exhaust all options before you come ask me, because too many people are going to build a crutch and not learn how to troubleshoot and learn that skill.
I've definitely seen that with people that I've worked through in the past, and there's the people that you can see the passion for the learning side of things in certain people, and you can see the people that are just like, I just want to see the clock hit 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock so I can get
Yeah,
out
it's
of
weird,
here,
right?
and they just don't care. And it's some of those people have that drive and some don't. And I feel like I'm one of the people that looks at it as, I love the challenge of trying to figure it out. It's like a puzzle, if there was ever an issue, and that's part of what sparked me to continue to learn stuff. And other people just like, hey, how do you fix this? How do you fix this?
Right. And it's funny you say that too, because like, natural selection, I feel like, is going to take its course on those people,
Yeah.
and they won't last very long. Saying that just reminds me of one person in particular. His name was Dan. He came down from Canada to work with us at the shop that I was at. And his first job with us was a backup camera in like a Dodge Ram. And I was like, "So you know what you're doing, right? You know how to connect it to the car. You know what you're doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." So I check it when it's done, and I shit you not, he basically hit a home run with the wire from the license plate right to the grommet underneath the car.
Nice.
So it
Nice.
didn't follow anything. It just like was a straight shot, direct taunt,
Yep.
directly to the grommet. And I'm just like, what are you doing? And he was the type of personality that he would take a manual home the night before he was going to do something, and he'd read the whole thing. So the next day he'd come in and fully know, like if it was like a jail clean sweep back in the day, he would know exactly the light sequence. If that shit were to start blinking all sorts of colors, he
Yep.
would know exactly what it meant without looking in the manual.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
that's where those type of people are going to excel, because now he works for Ford in like the prototype department.
Nice.
He's literally modeling interior parts of Fords, where like he might be responsible for the gear shift on a 2023 Ford F-150.
Yeah, there's definitely a wide range of people. I'm sure you worked with a bunch of different people with a bunch of different personalities, and uh, I've definitely seen a wide range of people and skills. And but I think that attitude and determination is even more important than actually having the skills. Like if you have the attitude that you can learn, like you can always learn the skills. You
Hmm.
can't learn to have passion for what you're doing
Oh yeah,
or be
never.
excited by it.
Yeah, you have to get in loving what you're doing, right? And I feel too often so many young people get discouraged or they expect too much too quick, where they're
Yeah,
just like, why can't I do what you're doing right now? Why won't my employer trust me to build pillars? Why won't my employer trust me to do a badass enclosure? And the way that I put it to some of the younger people that work for me is that you have to know as an employer that the job is going to turn out fine, right? It's going to be done on time. The customer is going to be happy, and that you're also going to make money on it, right? So it's those things that need to be known before somebody's going to take a chance. So I feel like you have to prove on your own time that you're capable of building something that a customer would accept, something that's going to perform, work, hold up, and then also again something that you're going to fit within that time frame, right? Cuz nobody's going to want to an employer's not going to want to sell pillars and you're charging maybe 1.5 days and it takes 3 days, because hello,
right.
you're losing money. Not many employers are going to, give up money for their employers to learn in a
Right.
real-time scenario. It just really doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I feel like through the years coming up, I came up a couple, at least a year or two before you did. At
Yeah.
least a year
Yeah.
or two.
Or
Um, we
15.
yeah, something like that. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have anything like that. We had car audio and electronics to look at pictures and try to reverse engineer what was
Of
done.
course, yep.
Um, and a lot of my friends, right out of high school got a lot of free or cheap work done to their cars because I think I figured out how they did this.
Mhm.
Let me try it in your car to see if I can make it work. The
Mhm.
first fiberglass box I ever did was in a buddy's truck just to like, hey, let me see. Let me see if we can
Mhm.
do this. And then
Mhm.
on to the next one, on to the next one. The next thing you know, you're doing fiberglass. So it, a lot of that learning experience came on my own dime on my end, and I guess I kind of expect that out of people, that if that's where you want to be, then yeah, you should be working on your own car and practicing and still researching and learning that stuff.
Yeah, you
But
gotta do something. I mean, your first job can't be like, "Here it is, let's see what happens," you know?
yeah, I mean, I also feel that we went through this kind of we're just called that era that you've been talking about, kind of the hot import nights era of the, I would say, the late 90s into the early mid 2000s. And there were a lot of installers that were brought in to car audio from that scene, from the car scene, not necessarily the audio scene, where before it was a lot of either mini truckers, the Volkswagen community had car
Mhm.
shows, and then there were the guys that were competing or going to audio contests or seeing big demo vans at events. But the hot import nights scene kind of exploded with that, as our friend Brian Schmidt likes to say, it exploded with fiberglass volcanoes.
Uh-huh.
And everything was fiberglassed and painted, and that kind of brought the attention to that stuff,
Right.
and kind of got all these guys excited about installs. And they were so worried about the cosmetic integration that none of them really got the background of the electronics or the acoustic side of things.
Mhm.
And so I feel like we had this kind of weird generation of installers in that 2000 to, let's say, 2010 range that were starting to become good fabricators, but didn't have the background to back it up.
Yeah, and I would 100% say that that was me until I found that to be a priority for myself in order to grow.
Right.
100%. I could build some cool stuff, but I don't know if I'd want to hear something that I built in 2008 that I thought was good and want to know what I could have done with it now with the
Right.
same equipment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we have it easy now. DSPs make our life easy.
Yeah, computers and seeing things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so getting back to kind of like my whole story, I was at Circuit City, left Circuit City, went back to Maryland, worked at that motoring shop, worked at Tweeter. Tweeter then filed bankruptcy during the pitfalls of the economy. And then it was kind of like, I don't even know what to do now because nobody was hiring. I remember calling a bunch of shops in like Philly, Pennsylvania area, New Jersey area. I went north first, and that wasn't a good idea because obviously none of those states were doing well. So that's where I landed in Virginia, Northern Virginia. Obviously, government always has money, doesn't matter if it's a recession or not. And that's where I landed at the shop that I was at in Manassas for 8, 9 years and worked there for a long time, got a really good background, obviously did a majority of all the fabrication. I would say the biggest turn of events was really when I made the top 12 installers in 2014. That was like the first year that I tried the whole industry award things. It's really the first time that I was connected to the entire industry versus seeing just like what I'm doing and what others are doing at my shop. Because in 2014, I could only see really magazines, internet, and what my shop was doing. I wasn't connected to the whole Facebook side of 12 volt. So I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anybody. I didn't see what other shops were producing. It was really only the stuff that I was making and my determination to get better, but I'm using my own stuff to motivate myself, which is always weird, right? I need to see something that somebody's doing better at another shop that is like far superior in order to be like, dude, I need to be there someday. So when I was in the top 12, we went to Dallas Knowledge Fest, and this is the year Tom Miller won. And I remember sitting in the audience there at the dinner when they were announcing Installer of the Year. Obviously, I had no shot in hell to win at that point. Nobody knew who the hell I was. But I remember them announcing Tom's name and then just seeing the true admiration of everyone in the crowd clapping for him was like the most emotional thing I've ever seen in my life. And obviously, he had a lot of stuff happen that year, but at the end of the day, he has everyone's respect in the industry. And that was something that I wanted to achieve at that point. I said to myself, like, someday I'll be able to do the same thing. And obviously, we know how that turned out. I had my moment in time, but obviously, I wasn't up there on stage. I was
Right.
on an airplane going home for the birth of my kid. But no, I mean, it was that admiration. That was the biggest thing to propel me to really accelerate and try and get better.
And
And
that was 14,
that was
and
2014.
then 15,
2015 JT won, I
and you
think.
were runner up.
And I was runner up.
That year over year, that's a little bit of improvement. I
Yeah.
mean, you went from 3 years previous to
Yeah. Yeah.
not even being on your radar basically
Right.
to 3 years later you're
Oh yeah. So 2015, JT won, I was runner up. And I think that honestly was the best thing that ever happened to me, because when you get so close, and I felt like I put a lot in, and I felt like the presentation, the video that I made was pretty stellar, and to fall short really just like pushes you into that last gear. And honestly, if I won that year, there's no way that you'd be naturally pushed into that next gear.
right.
So for me, honestly, it was the best thing that could have ever happened. And
I don't
then
I don't think I've seen there's 2 Installer of the Year awards that I believe were earned more than any other, and that was you, and I believe the following year it was Chris Pate.
yeah,
And
Chris grinded like crazy then.
yeah, the 2 of you were on a mission. I mean, it was a goal, it was planned,
hmm
it was executed, and you guys crushed it, like, both of you, back to back, like, nothing was gonna stand in your way. It was awesome to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely fun, and obviously the year that I won, Chris won runner up.
Right.
So it was a crazy time, and I'll say that like what I learned from that whole experience of doing installer of the year was photography, was videography, video editing, something that I never did before, never had any clue about, but it was really just a learn trait through YouTube to portray myself in a more professional fashion when the time came to do a video or show the work that you've done throughout the year. So, learning the photography, learning the videography obviously helped prove, like, show my case for installer of the year. But what I never would have known is that's the biggest staple in me showing my work through YouTube and our website for other people to see. And that's the direct result of how I get all my jobs.
Right.
All
The
my jobs
majority
come
of
through
your
YouTube.
customers, yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's all YouTube.
it's that exposure that if you wouldn't have taken the time to learn a new skill
It
that
would have
wasn't
never happened.
necessarily,
Never
like,
happened.
in your wheelhouse. Yeah.
Right. Right. And honestly, I remember in 2014 editing the video being like, "Oh my god, I have no idea what I'm doing. This looks ridiculous." The noise in the video was so horrible. At some point, I will release the 2014 video. It was so bad, and I think that my top 50 video was like a clean shot, webcam shot in a dark room on my bed of of my installer submission, and I didn't even know how to put pictures of my installs on the video. I had to like submit a Google Drive link to like install pictures because I didn't know how to put it on the screen.
Right.
I think the only person that's ever seen that video is like Chris McNulty. So I was like, "Oh, what do you think?" And he was like, "Oh, it's pretty terrible."
Hey, at least he's honest.
But like I said, I mean, there's so much that's really attributed to my success that has to do with that whole process. And a lot of people are obviously going to look at the process and think it's a popularity contest or it's whatever they think. It's an agenda, it's them propping somebody up to represent the industry. But that really had taught me so much about myself, because I could compare 2014 me to 2015 me to 2016 me, and as I'm editing the video for that year, I could see like my expanded growth of that whole year. And all I'm thinking about is like, man, if I grew that much from this year to this year, I can do the same next year. I can do the same the year after, right?
Do you feel like you still grow at that same pace?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stuff that I did last year or 2 years ago, I look at it, and even though I still think it's cool and tasteful, I think I could have done it better. I think I could have made it sound better. And I think that that's a healthy way to perceive your growth. Feel like you should think that something you did last year or the year before you could greatly improve upon. Because if
How
not, then you're not growing.
how often do you get done with an install and you look at it and you're like, I'm 100% happy with all of this?
I feel like every time I do a typical install, I feel like that because I
Yeah.
don't stop until I'm there.
Yeah.
Kind of like I told you on the last pod, just sound quality wise, I'll build the audio system and I'll build that first and I'll do the aesthetics second. And then I'll demo it, I don't know, 50 times to people, customers, clients, people in the shop to like really anally evaluate it and listen for resonance and just little things that I hear from the passenger seat that I can change because it'll improve the final result.
Yep.
So I think I'm pretty crazy when it comes to those details.
So if you're 100% happy with what you put out today,
Hmm.
how much time goes by until you look back and say, "Oh, I wish I would have done something different"? Like, or do you think you were saying like maybe you look back a year or 2 years and you think,
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily like I would have gone differently with the aesthetics or something like that. I think it's more where I could have engineered it better, right? You learn a new technique and you're like, I can, because the way that I'll layer things like, again, just a weird offbeat scenario is like the controller that I'm building right now for the Tesla 3, the Moscone controller. It's like a layered acrylic thing that perfectly encases the circuit board of the controller that then, it doesn't, I take the circuit board out of the metal of the Moscone controller, and then I'm just layering everything together. And then you're building a new top that's acrylic that has it perfectly, like it's a smoked acrylic piece. So the LCD comes through the acrylic and it just looks like a factory panel. Whereas 2 years ago, I might have trimmed around the controller and not, basically built the controller into this panel.
"Gotcha."
Little things like that. So it's not necessarily like I would do it way different. It's just I would engineer it better to make it look more factory.
Does
Yeah.
that get us to today? Did we
Yeah.
just run through your
Yeah.
entire history in one hour?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, obviously the whole Virginia shop, which was a shop called Safe and Sound in Manassas, Virginia, obviously I'll plug them. I was there for quite a while. And, I did have a good time working there. I just felt like at the end of it, it had to do with growth. And I knew that I didn't feel, well, I should say, I didn't feel my professional self grow over a course of a year, right? I felt like I was doing the same stuff and I wasn't getting further.
Right.
So that had a lot to do with like, equipment, lasers, CNC, whatever it is. But I felt like I had to take the next step in order for myself to grow. So that's what led me to Sound Effects in Lewis, Delaware. Obviously, the second I got there, they invested a lot in the shop and, a Trotec laser. So at this point, I'm forced to kind of modernize the way that I install because in our group of friends, dude, I was the last one making everything by hand. I remember we would be at, all the Mobile Solutions All-Star events and I remember one time you and I were building a console and I was building something and I remember Carlson could see exactly what I was like trying to make. So 5 minutes later, he came over with like this printed part from the laser and he's like, "Is this what you were thinking?" And, I'm just like, God damn it. Like, what am I doing? I'm making all these jigs to make one shape.
Right.
And obviously you can just draw it in a computer and really get the tolerances mathematically perfect. And that is what propelled me and obviously the installs that I do to the next level. I think it's very obvious if you were to look at the installs that I did while I was at Safe and Sound versus after Safe and Sound. And then on the other part of that it's literally aligning myself with Brian Layton, who is the owner of Sound Effects. He's like a really good leader, really good business dude. He's there 7 days a week, never leaves a shop. I know, Brian, you'll probably listen to this at some point. Shout out to you. You're probably listening to this in the shop right now, and it might be Sunday at 10 p.m. But he's always there at the shop, and there's a lot to learn from him from a leadership role and a perspective role. So what he saw me do on, at this moment, the Mosaic side, he pushed for that. And he's like, we need to market what you're doing on YouTube, and we need to celebrate that. And we need to gear towards the Tesla crowd. We need to gear towards the certain audience that you're exposing yourself to on YouTube. And he's like, well, we need a name for what you're doing. And I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but Mosaic, and the word mosaic is basically a spinoff mosaic. Mosaic is obviously a lot of layered images to create art or an image. Whereas I feel like mosaic is a bunch of layered aesthetic pieces to create the final result of music, right? It's when art meets music, mosaic. That's kind of where that whole terminology came from. And I already had this idea and design, artwork, all that stuff made because I was going to open my own shop at some point when I was starting to be unhappy in Virginia. And I was like, that's it, mosaic. And then I gave him the artwork. And then that's when we started pushing out this, Magnolia to Best Buy concept for sound effects.
Right.
And that's when obviously the brand starts being legitimized, is because we create the website, we perfectly match all the build logs and YouTube videos and make a very easy to navigate space to see all the work that's ever been done. Because everyone has their build logs on their computer, but nobody has it in a great, easy to see and navigate way online. And then you compare that with, DSLR pictures of good quality, and then it becomes like you're almost flipping through like magazine quality type stuff.
Right.
And then obviously you have the YouTube side of it, which you go through the build log and there's the YouTube video. So you're kind of being hit at all angles because it appeases to all the different types of crowds. There's people that love to see the behind the scenes stuff of the builds that you're doing, but then there's people that love to see the video walkthrough. So it answers a lot of questions. It's a great tool for selling because you can just tell them, go to the website and click on Cadillac and see all the Cadillacs we've done. So that's kind of when the YouTube side started exploding, because you start having all these different layers mixed together in a very great way. So that really brings us to where we're at today, into us doing what we're doing.
Very cool. And it lets you keep a more standardized car audio business running in addition to this advanced
Correct.
sound system business.
Yeah. So obviously Mosaic is the boutique side of car audio, and it's going to be the detail oriented side where we're doing everything to really complement, outfit the car, complement the serviceability, the full drive of the car. Whereas the sound effects side, they're doing the backup cameras and the doubled in radios and deck and four and all that kind of stuff. And it's also a good way to not confuse the two together, because obviously, when I was at Safe and Sound, you have people perceive installs that I'm not even doing as Safe and Sound, and I'm Safe and Sound. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
yeah, it's
too much
really
jumbled
tough.
together.
Right. And it's really tough too because there's such a wide acceptable quality level for installation. Obviously, there's a ton of unacceptable installation being done at a lot of shops, but there has to be an acceptable quality level, and every inch of something in an audio system can be done. Like, I mean, literally, I could take a month to mount a set of speakers and a set of doors if I
Right.
really wanted to overdo. And part of that responsibility as system designers is that we need to find that acceptable quality level and push it to what the budget allows and what the required outcome or the target goal is, and kind of mating that together. And there's some installs where, I mean, by the time we mount a circuit breaker and upgrade a ground at the battery, I'm looking that we have 2 hours in the battery area, like
Mm-hmm.
for something that is relatively simple. And yet other shops will take a fuse holder and maybe zip tie it to a wire loom and call that acceptable, and they're
Mm-hmm.
there for 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really hard. And then so when you try to have a production business and like a boutique business, like you said, in the
Yeah,
same
like I said, you just have to
so
separate the two. And it has nothing to do with the quality of work that other people are doing. It's just the perception of, hey, I got this done at X shop, which I would be affiliated with, but somebody else did it. So technically, it's not that person he's telling associates me with that shop. He's ultimately thinking I had a hand into that build.
right.
You know what I mean? And that's just what you have to separate.
Yep. Well, very cool. I feel like that was quite an education, even for me. I did not know all that stuff about you. We talk a decent amount, and
Oh,
I learned some
I
stuff.
did leave one little tidbit out, and
What's that?
it's just a distant memory. But when I navigated, I told you, like, after Tweeter, everything kind of like came crashing down,
Right.
and I didn't know what to do. I briefly worked at Lexus as a mechanic.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have to go through like certification, all that, or were you an oil
I
change
didn't.
dude?
No. I started out doing like legit flat rate stuff.
No disrespect to the parts changers or oil changers at
Right.
dealerships.
Yeah. Shout out to them on the pod. But within the first week I was there, one of my first jobs, I spent like 7 hours replacing a cam seal.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And
What's the book time?
the end result of that job is it doesn't leak anymore. And that is what ruined the whole thing for me, because you have the angry customer who is leaking oil all over their engine. It's on their floor. They're pissed off. They're like, God damn it, I do not want to take my car in because I know I'm going to spend thousands of dollars.
Right.
I already told you 7 hours on that job. And he gets there, he gets his car back. When he pays the bill and gets his car back, he is even more pissed because he just handed over the card, the money left his account.
Right.
You just spent a lot of time fighting an engine, and then the customer's not even happy. There's no payoff. And I'm sure there's a lot of mechanics listening. I'm sure you found a way to get a payoff, but for me, I did not find that payoff, and I had to quickly bail.
Yeah. There's something
It was
special.
miserable.
There's something special about delivering a car to somebody and giving them the demo and letting them hear music like they haven't heard it before in a car.
100%. 100%.
You can't beat that.
No. Yeah. So it was fun. I was a mechanic at some point, but it was not fun.
You know what you did not tell, which I am pretty sure I remember you saying at some point. You went to a fish camp at some point?
Yep. Yeah, I did. I'd left that completely out. So, okay. So before I left Florida for good, before I left Orlando for good, I had timed it to where I went to Installer Institute. So this is, I left Circuit City. I'm done UTI. I have about a month and a half left before we move back to Maryland. And I take that time to go to Installer Institute in Daytona Beach. At the time, Jason Anderson was the head teacher there. Obviously, Monica was there. Marcus had just started. Really, really cool dude. Joe was not there yet. I don't know if you know Joe.
I don't.
He built some fucking wicked stuff. I don't know if you see some of the stuff he builds and post. You'll see it every now and then. He's really talented. But we went to Installer Institute, did that whole thing because, again, the same mindset. Like, you gotta go to every source of information so you have the information. You know, I'm not one of those people that be like, oh, I don't need Installer Institute. They're just going to teach you how to do X, Y, and Z. I want to know everything. And you might learn one little nugget out of that whole time there, but it might be the biggest nugget that's going to like change your path. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Fish Camp was at the end of that. And obviously Dave Fishman Rivera came in and was Dave Fishman Rivera. I mean,
Quiet, subdued.
yeah, all of that completely unplugged. I remember one of the best stories he told, and again, this was, I don't even know I should be saying this, but he obviously would motorize everything in his career, and he told the entire class that he had one guy tailgating him one time, and he was flashing his lights behind him, putting his high beams into his car. So this is when he had the, I guess, the fish expedition. Is that what he called it? The
I think
expedition?
so. Yeah.
And he had a big motorized TV out of the back. So he said he motorized his TV up. He put on like Pornhub, and he fast forwarded, or maybe it wasn't even Pornhub because that didn't even exist at the time. But he put a VHS tape in, I guess, and fast forwarded to the part where some chick's just getting drilled. Yeah, we'll cut this out. And he started just like having it available to see for the person behind him. And then the person like slowed down, veered off to the side. But again, it's classic Fishman stories.
I believe that part should just be a series of beeps and then just a really long beep.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so while we're kind of breaking, I say that we wrap this up, and if you want to keep going, I say we
and then
start a fresh
episode 3 is going to be your backstory.
All right.
Okay, and then we'll do a thumbnail of whatever your backstory affiliates with you.
Okay.
We'll do my clips for episode 2, and then episode 3 can be whatever reminds you of your upbringing.
That's going to be interesting. Okay, so we need to find a way to wrap this up. I think you want me to tell my Circuit City self-insured loss story?
Yeah, you got to end it with the self-insured loss story. I'll finish the fish thing.
Okay.
And then you can start getting into that story.
Okay.
All right. So I think with Fishman, the biggest thing that he taught me was really how to layer panels together. Because before I had went there, I was just doing like, one layer, whereas he would build in multiple layers.
In like inlays and
different inlays and inlays that were in inlays. And that's when I saw like the production side of fabrication versus just like, hey, have this cutout fit in a panel. Because that's where I was at before.
Wait, so obviously that's a pretty big deal. Looking back, like are there a couple other things that stick out in your mind as those kind of turning points, those nuggets that you got that were turning points that kind of changed the way you do things? You'd brought up the story about Jeremy and the laser at Mobile Solutions, Fish showing.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of scenarios like that. Obviously, I think the Tom Miller point winning installer of the year, I think that was the biggest influencer because again, that's when I was introduced to the 12-volt family, if you will. And then I saw the admiration that all those people in the room had for Tom. And I'm just like, fuck, that's cool. That would be very cool to happen someday. So obviously, if I'm going through the backstory real quick, I'll just end when I won installer of the year in 2016. For the people that don't know, the story that happened was earlier that day, literally that morning of the award ceremony night. And again, at this point, we don't know who's going to win, but the idea behind it, I remember Solomon had told me like, hey, you're going to want to stick around. So I think that was kind of like insight that I might win because he had told me that the night before. He knew like my wife was on the verge of having a baby. And I feel like it's very apropos because it ties him to my 4-year-old at the beginning of the story. So that morning she had like terrible contractions, my wife did, and was like, I think it's it. I think it's time. She went to the doctor. The doctor said she could have the baby. And I'm like, all right, there's just impeccable timing and things in life. And, this is potentially could be that moment for me. And I remember I talked to you, Katz and Carlson and all those guys, and was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go home. And everyone was super nice and everyone was supportive, saying, yeah, you obviously take care of family first. So I ended up leaving that day. I taught a class And again, tying back into the beginning, is it was like
taught a photography class.
Yeah, it
I
was a
remember.
photography class, right? And again, the whole reason that happened was because of the beginning of this Installer of the Year stuff. So teaching that, literally stopping midway through, catching an Uber to the airport, and then I'm on the plane and I get Wi-Fi and I'm streamed into Facebook Live and they're streaming the event. Okay. So I remember I'm watching everything. I see literally up to Retailer of the Year. I see them announce the top 12 and they start getting into runner up. And right when they get into runner up, we start descending and they cut off Wi-Fi. And secretly, I was so pissed because I'm like, I don't even get to see what happens in real time. Like I thought at least I would get to see the whole thing happen.
Yeah.
On my phone, but they cut it. I landed. And I never so quickly, like as our wheels are hitting the ground, I'm off airplane mode at this point. I'm like, come on, find a cell tower. So
Is it about
immediately,
that time starts blowing up? Ding, 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 ding.
Once it found everything, text left, right, messages all over the place. And that was a clear indication that I'm pretty sure that I won, or else it would have been like the worst joke ever. If people knew that I couldn't see it all happen. But I landed, I saw that I won, quickly went to Facebook Live to like rewind to kind of see what happened. And then I did like the most silent celebration that's probably ever existed in the history of the world. Like it was a hard, slow fist bump to the side. I didn't talk to the person next to me. They had no idea, but
understand. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. It was just my story, my scenario, my win. So it's cool because that's how it happened.
Yeah.
I guess it's a fun story to tell.
Yeah. It's a hell of a story. I mean,
and
it's
then
probably more memorable than if you would have been standing up there.
Yeah. And then the best part of it was I didn't have my 4-year-old now for about another 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. After all that.
Yeah. After all that.
And
hold on. So I remember you in part accepted the award on stage for me.
I did.
Do you remember?
I don't remember what the joke was. I remember
it was a good joke about like thanking your arms and your toes and your legs.
Yeah. It was a terrible joke.
It was pretty good.
Funny. The two of us thought it was funny. I don't think anybody else in the room.
I don't know. I thought it was probably pretty good.
I'll have to go back and watch that.
So winding this up, I know you still owe me a SIL story.
Oh gosh. Okay. So yeah. So Circuit City, we'll get there whenever we talk about my history through car audio, but it's got to be about 93 or 4-ish at the Circuit City in Laguna Hills, which there's some really good car audio.
Sounds
stories.
ritzy.
Oh gosh. It was the highest volume Circuit City road shop for, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 years. And it would get so crowded on the weekends that cars would get pulled into the loading dock, and there's literally trailers in front of the cars. And it's on a weekend, it's really busy, and manager pulls, I want to say it was an older BMW, the one where you have to pull the car out of gear to get the radio out. I don't know if you remember that. You're probably too young to remember that, but one of the older BMWs, you got to pull it out of gear to pull the radio out. So I go over to the car and I bring my drop cloth. You remember Circuit City? The gray drop cloth and the floor mat. The floor mat's right in there, but I put the drop cloth in there and I sit down in the car and I look and it's already out of gear. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I pull the radio out and I go walking back to the main part of the shop. And I just hear this. And apparently the manager had gotten it prepped, pulled it out of gear, thought he had set the emergency brake, and he didn't. And the car rolled into one of the trailers in the loading dock, broke the windshield on a Sunday, right? On a BMW.
Oh, no.
We're like, Oh man, so we start calling around for a windshield, and luckily it just broke the glass and stopped the car, pushed the car back. But it's like when you're walking away, it's like one of those movies with the explosion happening behind you. It's like, oh no, that just happened, and you don't know until you go back there and look at it. But it all said and done, it was one of those. It was probably $300 to get the windshield replaced, and the guy did it that day, and the customer was cool. I think we comped his install and gave him some speakers or something, and he was happy. But that's my
For sure, that's an SIL.
yeah. Oh yeah.
100% SIL.
There's
Good.
there's some other good stories there. Maybe at some point when we have some other people on with us, we will talk about. There is a very famous story about the Circuit City in Laguna Hills, and it involves Alpine, and it involves a Lamborghini. And
I think I knew who else it might involve.
well, it was just Circuit City employees, but we'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
I think that's a good
Sounds
stopping
fun. Yeah. So EP3, I think, is going to be your backstory. I feel like there's a lot of stories
I
there.
was gonna say we might need
So yeah,
we might just have to put a few nuggets in there each week or
yeah,
something.
might have to be 2 episodes.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get through
But I
it.
know you have some good stories, like some really good stories.
I, hopefully my brain works and can
I know
recall.
you have a good Stevie Nicks story.
I do.
That is a great story. So,
One of my favorite moments in life.
yep,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to hear that one.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, I think that's it. And my old fashioned is done. So
Mine's been done again for. I think next time I'm gonna have to make two glasses because obviously I'm not getting up. So I think I'm gonna have to have 2 glasses identical made. The second old fashioned, I'm gonna take your advice from EP1, and I'm gonna do whiskey ice, so the second one doesn't get watered down. What do
there
you
you
think?
go. I think that's a perfect plan.
Yeah. And
See,
we need a sponsor. We need a whiskey sponsor.
I know.
So I'm just going to put that plug in right now. Maybe we'll have to shop this around to different
Right.
distilleries.
Right.
But I'm going to get tired soon of purchasing all my own whiskey. So
Right. Right. At some point, I'm sure we'll have like a Patreon account. Maybe you could buy us a drink on there.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's fun.
There you
All right,
go.
man. Well, I
Cool.
appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for
Good
chatting to
talking
me
to you.
tonight, and
Yeah.
I'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good. Take care.